A billionaire CEO answers a wrong number and hears a desperate child. Daddy, my back hurts from carrying my sisters. Harrison Sterling races to rescue 3 lost girls in a storm, unaware this call will reveal a shocking secret that changes his life forever. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and type Amen in the comments. A beautiful piece of good news may come your way very soon. And don't forget to tell us where you're watching from. The rain hammered against the forest canopy like 1,000 angry fists, each drop a reminder of how unforgiving nature could be. 6-year-old Madison pressed her small body against the rough bark of an ancient Douglas fir, trying desperately to shield her 2-year-old twin sisters from the worst of the storm. Her blonde hair, usually bright and wild with curls, now hung in dark matted strings around her pale face. Her blonde hair, usually bright and wild with curls, now hung in dark matted strings around her pale face. Her blue eyes, too old for her years, scanned the darkening woods with the kind of fear that no child should ever know. Shh, shh, it's okay, Madison whispered to her sisters, Zoe and Chloe, who whimpered softly in their makeshift slings. She had fashioned the carrier herself from a bamboo pole she'd found near an old camping site and 2 purple scarves that had been their mother's, the only nice things they owned. The twins dangled on either side of her thin shoulders, their tiny fingers clutching the fabric as Madison's back screamed in protest. Every muscle burned. Every step was agony, but she couldn't stop. Stopping meant dying. They had been begging for food near the hiking trails on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon, just like they did most days. Their mother, Sarah, had been too sick to come with them that morning, coughing up blood into a rag she hid under her pillow. Madison knew her mama was getting worse, but Sarah always said they couldn't afford doctors. So Madison had taken her sisters, promising to bring back something, anything to eat. But then the storm came, fast and furious, like the world itself was angry. They'd run for shelter deeper into the forest, and now Madison had no idea which way led back to the broken-down trailer they called home. The cheap prepaid phone her mother had given her, wrapped carefully in 3 layers of plastic bags and tucked into her worn jacket, was their only hope. Madison had been trying for hours to get a signal, climbing hills, standing on rocks, holding it up to the sky like a prayer. Her fingers trembled as she unwrapped the phone once more, the plastic crinkling softly. 1 bar, just 1 precious bar of signal flickered on the screen. Madison's heart leaped into her throat. This was it. This might be her only chance. She fumbled through the contacts, tears mixing with rain on her cheeks, and pressed the number labeled Dad. It wasn't her real father. Madison barely remembered him, just a shadow of anger and alcohol before he disappeared when she was 3. But Robert, the man her mother had been seeing for the past year, had told Madison she could call him Dad if she wanted. He'd been kind at first, buying them groceries sometimes, fixing things around their trailer. Madison didn't entirely trust him. She'd learned not to trust easily, but right now he was the only adult she could call. The phone rang once, twice. Madison held her breath, her small body shaking from cold and exhaustion. Zoe whimpered again, and Madison bounced gently on her heels, trying to soothe her sister despite the pain shooting through her spine. 3 rings. 4. Please, please, please answer. Hello? The voice that answered wasn't Robert's familiar gruff tone. It was deeper, smoother, with an edge of irritation that spoke of interrupted important business. Who is this? Madison's voice cracked as she spoke, her words tumbling out in a desperate rush. Daddy? Daddy, my back hurts so much. I'm carrying Zoe and Chloe and I don't know where we are. It's raining so hard and they're crying and I'm trying to keep them dry but I can't and I'm so scared. And I don't know what to do and— Wait, slow down, the man interrupted, his tone shifting from irritation to confusion, then to something that sounded almost like concern. I'm not your father. You have the wrong number. But are you saying you're lost in the rain with 2 other children? Madison's heart sank like a stone in water. Wrong number. She'd called the wrong number. Her one chance, her single bar of signal, and she'd wasted it. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks, hot and bitter. I'm sorry, mister. I thought you were. Her voice dissolved into sobs. On the other end of the line, CEO Harrison Sterling stood in his corner office on the 47th floor of the Sterling Enterprises building in downtown Portland, staring out at the storm battering the city. At 42 years old, he was a man accustomed to control, to order, to problems that could be solved with money or strategy. But the sound of this child's voice, so small, so terrified, so utterly alone, pierced through every business-hardened layer he'd built around himself. "Don't hang up," Harrison said quickly, his voice gentler now. He moved away from his desk, ignoring the confused looks from his assistant through the glass wall of his office. "Tell me where you are. Tell me everything you can see around you." Madison hiccuped, trying to catch her breath. Something in the man's voice made her want to trust him, even though her mother had always warned her about trusting strangers. But what choice did she have? "We're in a forest. There are really big trees. We were near the hiking trails by Miller Creek, I think. But we ran when the storm came, and now I don't know. Everything looks the same." Harrison's mind raced. Miller Creek trails. That was maybe 15 miles from the city, up in the foothills. Vast stretches of wilderness where a child could wander for days and never be found. His jaw tightened. "How long have you been out there?" "Since morning," Madison whispered. We were trying to find food. My mom was sick and we didn't have breakfast, so I took my sisters to ask the hikers if they had any extra. And then the rain came and..." She stopped abruptly, as if realizing she'd said too much, revealed too much of the desperate poverty that defined their lives. Something twisted in Harrison's chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years, not since before his own daughter had died 5 years ago, before he'd buried himself in work to escape the grief. "Listen to me very carefully," he said, his voice firm but kind. "My name is Harrison. I'm going to help you, but I need you to stay calm and stay where you are. Can you do that?" "The phone is dying," Madison said, panic creeping back into her voice. "It's at 10%. "Then we don't have much time," Harrison said, already grabbing his car keys and heading for the door. His assistant, Marcus, jumped up in surprise. "Text me your location. Can you do that? There should be a way to share your location from your phone. Do you know how?" Madison bit her lip, her small fingers navigating the old phone's interface with surprising skill. Survival had taught her to be resourceful. I think so. My friend at school showed me once." A few taps and she hit send. "I did it. Did you get it?" Harrison's phone buzzed and he pulled up the location on his screen. His blood ran cold. She was deep in the forest, miles from any road. "I've got it, Madison. That's your name, right? You said it a moment ago." "Yes, sir," she whispered. "I'm coming to get you, Madison, I promise, but you need to save your battery. Turn off everything except the phone function and keep the phone close to you. If I call you back, answer immediately. Can you do that?" "Yes, but why are you helping us? You don't even know us." Harrison paused at the elevator, his reflection staring back at him in the polished steel doors. A man in an expensive suit, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes that had seen too much loss. Why was he helping them? He didn't have a good answer, except that he wouldn't, let a child die alone in the woods. Not when he had the power to stop it. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said simply. "Now save that battery. I'll be there soon." The line went dead. Madison clutched the phone to her chest, hope and fear warring inside her. The man, Harrison, had sounded so sure, so confident. But would he really come? Adults made promises all the time and broke them. Still, what choice did she have but to believe? She adjusted the bamboo pole on her aching shoulders, feeling Zoe and Chloe's small bodies settling into exhausted sleep against her. "Someone's coming," she whispered to them even though they couldn't understand. "Someone's going to help us. We just have to hold on a little longer." In the distance, thunder rolled across the mountains like the drums of war, and Madison closed her eyes, praying to a god she wasn't sure existed that the man named Harrison was telling the truth. Harrison's Range Rover tore through the rain-slicked streets of Portland like a bullet, his hands gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled intensity. The windshield wipers worked frantically, barely keeping up with the deluge. He'd called 911 immediately after hanging up with Madison, but the dispatcher had told him what he'd already feared. The storm had caused multiple emergencies across the region. They'd send someone as soon as possible, but it could be hours. Hours that a 6-year-old girl and 2 toddlers didn't have. So Harrison had made a decision that his rational business mind screamed was reckless. He'd go himself. He'd also called his head of security, Vincent Crawford, a former Marine who Harrison trusted implicitly. Vincent was meeting him at the Miller Creek trailhead with supplies, thermal blankets, first aid equipment, GPS trackers, and high-powered flashlights. If Harrison was going into those woods, he wasn't going unprepared. As he drove, his mind kept circling back to the girl's voice. Madison. She'd sounded so small, so scared. Yet there had been a strength in her, too. A determination that reminded him painfully of his own daughter, Charlotte, who would have been 11 now if the cancer hadn't taken her. Charlotte had fought until the very end, never complaining about the pain, always trying to be brave for him and his wife, Jennifer. Jennifer. They'd divorced 2 years after Charlotte died, unable to bridge the canyon of grief that had opened between them. She'd wanted to try for another child, to fill the emptiness. He'd thrown himself into work, building his empire higher and higher as if success could somehow compensate for the daughter-shaped hole in his heart. Now Jennifer lived in Seattle with her new husband, and Harrison lived alone in a penthouse that echoed with memories. His phone rang, startling him from his thoughts. Marcus, his assistant. "Sir, I've contacted the Miller Creek Rangers. They're sending out a search team, but they say the conditions are extremely dangerous. They're advising you to wait for the professionals." "Noted," Harrison said curtly. "Anything else?" "Yes, actually." Marcus's voice took on a strange tone. "I did some research on that phone number that called you. The account is registered to a Sarah Mitchell, age 28. She lives in a trailer park on the east side. There are 3 children registered at that address, Madison, age 6, and twins Zoe and Chloe, age 2. Sir, there are also multiple reports with Child Protective Services." Harrison's jaw clenched. "What kind of reports?" "Neighbors have called in concerns about the children being left alone, about insufficient food, about the mother's declining health. But CPS hasn't removed the children yet because apparently the mother loves them and is trying her best. They're in a monitoring situation." Marcus paused. "Sir, these kids are in the system. They're barely surviving." The information hit Harrison like a physical blow. Madison hadn't been exaggerating when she said they were looking for food. These children were genuinely hungry, genuinely desperate. What kind of world allowed children to starve in a wealthy city like Portland? What kind of systems were in place that monitored suffering but didn't end it? "Find out everything you can about Sarah Mitchell," Harrison ordered. "Medical history, employment, family situation, everything." "And Marcus?" "Not a word of this to anyone else. Understood?" "Understood, sir." Harrison ended the call just as he pulled into the muddy parking area at Miller Creek trailhead. Vincent was already there, his dark skin glistening with rain as he loaded supplies into a massive hiking backpack. At 50 years old, Vincent was still built like the Marine he'd once been, all muscle and discipline. "You sure about this, boss?" Vincent asked as Harrison stepped out into the storm. "That forest is over 20 square miles. Even with the GPS coordinates, finding 3 kids in this weather is like finding a needle in a haystack. A very dark, very dangerous haystack." "I'm sure," Harrison said, shrugging into the waterproof jacket Vincent handed him. "You have the coordinates programmed?" "Yeah, but they're not exact. Could be off by 100 yards or more depending on the phone's GPS accuracy." Vincent's dark eyes studied Harrison with concern. "This is about Charlotte, isn't it?" Harrison froze, his hand on the backpack strap. Vincent was one of the few people who knew about his daughter, about the pain that still woke him up at 3 in the morning. "This is about 3 children who will die if someone doesn't help them," he said finally. "Fair enough." Vincent shouldered his own pack. "Then let's go bring them home." They started up the trail, their heavy-duty flashlights cutting through the gloom. The path quickly became treacherous, mud sucking at their boots, branches whipping across their faces. Harrison had hiked these trails before, back when he'd had a family to take camping, but never in conditions like these. The rain was relentless, turning every slope into a potential landslide, every stream into a raging torrent. An hour in, Vincent's GPS beeped. We're getting close, maybe half a mile northeast, but it's going to be rough terrain. No trails up there. They left the main path, pushing through dense underbrush that tore at their clothes and skin. Harrison's expensive suit pants were ruined, his Italian leather shoes destroyed, but he didn't care. All he could think about was Madison, trying to keep her sisters alive with nothing but a bamboo pole and determination. "Madison!" he called out, his voice barely audible over the storm. "Madison, can you hear me?" Silence, except for the rain and wind. They kept moving, calling her name every few minutes. Harrison's phone remained stubbornly silent. Either her phone had died, or she'd turned it off to save battery like he'd instructed. He had to trust that she was still there, still alive, still holding on. "Over there." Vincent suddenly pointed with his flashlight. "Is that purple fabric?" Harrison's heart leaped. He ran toward the spot, his feet slipping in the mud, and there, pressed against the massive trunk of a Douglas fir, he saw them. Madison sat with her back against the tree, the bamboo pole still across her thin shoulders, the purple scarves holding two tiny sleeping forms. Her eyes were closed, her face pale as death, her small body shivering violently. "Madison!" Harrison dropped to his knees beside her, his hands reaching out to check for a pulse. Relief flooded through him when he felt the weak but steady beat under his fingers. "Madison, wake up, we're here, you're safe now." Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "Mama?" she whispered. "No, it's Harrison. Remember? From the phone? I came to help you." He was already gently lifting the bamboo pole off her shoulders, and Madison cried out in pain as blood circulation returned to her compressed muscles. Vincent moved immediately to check the twins, carefully unwrapping them from their scarves. "They're alive," Vincent confirmed, his voice tight with emotion. "Hypothermic, but alive. This girl saved their lives." Harrison wrapped Madison in a thermal blanket, rubbing her arms to generate warmth. Her eyes were clearer now, focusing on him with a mixture of disbelief and wonder. "You really came," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You kept your promise." "Of course I did," Harrison said, surprised by how much her words affected him. When had he become someone whose promises were doubted? Then again, what promises had the world ever kept to her? "Let's get you all warm and dry." Vincent had already activated an emergency beacon, and within minutes Harrison could hear the distant thump of helicopter rotors. The Rangers were coming with a medical evacuation team. Madison would get to a hospital. The twins would get checked out. They would all survive. But as Harrison held the small, shivering girl against his chest, feeling her heartbeat gradually strengthen, he realized something profound. Finding her hadn't ended anything. It had begun something. A connection had formed the moment she'd called him Daddy on that phone. A connection that wouldn't be easily severed. "Where's my mama?" Madison asked suddenly, panic entering her voice. "Is she okay? She was so sick this morning. I have to get home to her." Harrison exchanged a look with Vincent. They'd have to contact Sarah Mitchell, let her know her children were safe. But something in Marcus's report nagged at him. Something about the mother's medical condition, about the desperation of their situation. This wasn't just a rescue operation anymore. This was the beginning of something far more complicated. Portland Memorial Hospital's emergency room blazed with fluorescent light, a stark contrast to the dark forest Harrison had just left. He sat in an uncomfortable plastic chair, still wearing his muddy, torn clothes, watching through a window as doctors examined Madison and her sisters. The twins had been whisked away immediately, their tiny bodies dangerously cold. Madison had refused to let go of Harrison's hand until the nurses had gently pried her fingers loose, promising he'd be right outside. That had been 30 minutes ago. Harrison's phone buzzed constantly. Marcus with updates, board members wondering where he'd disappeared to, investors concerned about his absence from a crucial meeting. He ignored them all. For the first time in 5 years, something mattered more than Sterling Enterprises. "Mr. Sterling?" A young doctor approached, her scrub still damp from treating the girls. "I'm Dr. Amanda Torres. I've been taking care of your... Are you family?" "No," Harrison admitted. "I'm the one who found them. How are they?" "Doctor?" Torres studied him curiously, clearly wondering why a man in an obviously expensive, though now destroyed suit, would risk his life for children he didn't know. The twins will be fine. They're warming up nicely, and aside from some dehydration and minor malnutrition, they're remarkably healthy. It's almost miraculous. She paused, her expression darkening. Madison, however, is another story. Harrison stood up abruptly. What's wrong? Physically, she has severe muscle strain in her back and shoulders, likely from carrying her sisters for hours. She has multiple bruises in various stages of healing, though she insists they're from playing, not abuse. Malnutrition is more severe in her case than in the twins. She's been giving them most of her food. But what concerns me most is her emotional state. Dr. Torres lowered her voice. She's absolutely terrified that we're going to separate her from her sisters. She keeps asking about her mother, begging us not to call CPS, Mr. Sterling. This is a child who's been carrying the weight of her entire family on 6-year-old shoulders. The words hit Harrison harder than they should have. He'd built a fortune, commanded respect from powerful people around the world, but he'd never done anything as brave or selfless as what Madison had done in those woods. Can I see her? She's been asking for you, Dr. Torres said with a slight smile. She calls you the Promise Man, says you're the first adult who ever kept a promise to her. That's heartbreaking, actually. Harrison followed the doctor into the examination room. Madison sat on the bed, dwarfed by the hospital gown, her blonde hair now clean and brushed, revealing its natural curl. Her blue eyes lit up when she saw him, and before he could say anything, she'd launched herself at him, her small arms wrapping around his waist. You stayed, she said into his shirt. I thought you'd leave once we got here. Harrison found himself hugging her back, this tiny stranger who'd somehow crept past his defenses in a matter of hours. I told you I'd help you. I'm not done yet. He gently guided her back to the bed, sitting beside her. Madison, we need to talk about your mother. The doctors need to contact her, let her know you're safe. Can you give me her number? Madison's face crumpled with worry. She's going to be so scared. She doesn't know where we are. And she's sick, Mr. Harrison. Really sick. She coughs up blood and she can't work anymore, and that's why we don't have money for food and… The words tumbled out in a rush, all the fear and responsibility she'd been carrying finally breaking through. Hey, it's okay, Harrison said softly, the same way he used to comfort Charlotte during her treatments. We're going to help your mother too, but first I need to know how to reach her. Madison recited a number from memory, and Harrison immediately texted it to Marcus with instructions to locate Sarah Mitchell and arrange for her transport to the hospital if needed. He had a feeling needed was an understatement. Mr. Harrison? Madison's voice was small again. Are they going to take us away? The CPS people? My friend at school got taken away from her mama, and she said it was really scary. And they wouldn't let her sister come with her, and I can't. I can't leave Zoe and Chloe. I'm supposed to take care of them. The raw fear in her voice made Harrison's chest ache. No one is taking you anywhere tonight, he promised, though he wasn't sure he had the authority to make that promise. You're all safe here. Before Madison could respond, a commotion erupted in the hallway. A woman's voice, weak but desperate, was crying out, My babies! Where are my babies? Madison, Zoe, Chloe! Madison's face transformed with relief and terror. Mama! She tried to jump off the bed, but Harrison caught her gently. Let me handle this, he said, standing up. He stepped into the hallway and saw her, Sarah Mitchell, age 28, but looking 20 years older. She was painfully thin, her long brown hair hanging limply around a face that might have been beautiful once but was now hollow with exhaustion and illness. She wore clothes that were clean but threadbare, and she was leaning heavily on a security guard who'd apparently brought her up from the ER entrance. Her eyes, the same blue as Madison's, were wild with panic. Where are my children? She demanded, her voice breaking. The hospital called and said they were here, that they'd been in the woods, and I don't understand what happened, and… She dissolved into coughing, harsh and wet, and Harrison saw her discreetly spit blood into a tissue. Mrs. Mitchell, Harrison began, but Madison's cry interrupted him. Mama! The little girl had escaped the room and now ran down the hallway, throwing herself into her mother's arms. Sarah collapsed to her knees, clutching Madison to her chest, sobbing uncontrollably. "I'm sorry, baby, I'm so sorry," Sarah choked out. "I fell asleep. I was so tired, and when I woke up you were gone. All three of you were gone, and I thought—" She couldn't finish, just held her daughter tighter. Harrison stood frozen, watching this reunion with emotions he couldn't name. Dr. Torres appeared beside him, her expression grim. "That's the mother?" she murmured. "Yes. She needs to be admitted immediately. That cough sounds like advanced tuberculosis, possibly pneumonia. She shouldn't even be upright." The doctor moved towards Sarah, professional concern overriding everything else. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Dr. Torres. Your children are all fine, but I need you to come with me. You're very ill." Sarah's head snapped up, fear flashing across her face. "No. No hospitals. I can't afford it. Just let me take my babies home." "Mrs. Mitchell." I said no. Sarah tried to stand, swayed dangerously, and would have fallen if Harrison hadn't caught her. The moment his hands touched her arms, a strange jolt ran through him, recognition though he'd never met this woman before. Sarah looked up at him, and her eyes widened with shock. "You," she whispered, her face going even paler. You're Harrison Sterling." Harrison frowned. "Do we know each other?" Sarah's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You don't remember me," she said so quietly he almost didn't hear. "Why would you? It was one night 7 years ago at a charity gala. I was working as a caterer. We talked by the fountain. You were kind to me. You told me about your daughter, about how much you loved her. And then—" She trailed off, her expression anguished. Harrison's mind raced back 7 years. A charity gala for children's cancer research, 6 months after Charlotte's diagnosis. Jennifer had been home with Charlotte that night, and he'd stepped outside to get air, overwhelmed by grief for what was coming. And there had been a young woman, beautiful and sad, serving champagne. They'd talked. He'd been drunk on sorrow and whiskey. Oh God. Harrison looked at Madison, really looked at her. The blonde hair that was nothing like Sarah's dark brown, the blue eyes that weren't quite the same shade as her mother's, the facial structure that suddenly seemed hauntingly familiar. He pulled up a photo on his phone, one of the few he still kept. Charlotte at age 6, smiling despite her bald head from chemotherapy. The resemblance wasn't exact, but it was there. In the shape of the eyes, the curve of the smile, the stubborn set of the jaw. "No," Harrison breathed. "That's not possible." Sarah was crying harder now, clutching Madison. "I tried to find you," she said desperately. "I looked you up online, but you're so famous, so protected. I couldn't get through to you. And I was ashamed and scared. And then when Madison was born, she looked so much like you, but I convinced myself I was wrong, that it was just coincidence. And I met Robert, and he said he'd help us, but—" "Wait." Harrison held up a hand, his entire world tilting on its axis. "Are you telling me that Madison is—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Madison looked between the adults, confusion and fear warring on her young face. "Mama? What's wrong? What's happening?" Dr. Torres cleared her throat. "I think we need to move this conversation to somewhere more private, and Mrs. Mitchell needs immediate medical attention." But Harrison couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. Madison, the little girl who'd called him Daddy by accident, who'd somehow reached through his defenses in a single phone call, might actually be his daughter. His daughter. The idea was impossible, overwhelming, terrifying, and somehow, despite everything, filled him with a hope he'd thought died with Charlotte. Sarah swayed again, her strength finally giving out entirely. "Please," she whispered to Harrison as her eyes rolled back. "Take care of them. Whatever happens to me, promise me you'll—" She collapsed, and chaos erupted as medical staff rushed forward. Madison screamed for her mother, and Harrison found himself holding the little girl back, murmuring reassurances he wasn't sure he believed, while his mind spun with one impossible thought. What if I just found my daughter? The hospital conference room felt suffocating despite its spacious design. Harrison sat at the head of the long table, his hands clasped tightly in front of him, trying to process information that seemed to belong in someone else's life. Across from him sat two representatives from Child Protective Services, a hospital social worker named Patricia Green, Dr. Torres, and his attorney, Michael Brennan, whom he'd called the moment Sarah had collapsed. It had been 6 hours since the revelation. 6 hours of blood tests, frantic phone calls, and mounting tension. Sarah Mitchell remained in the ICU, sedated and on oxygen, diagnosed with advanced tuberculosis and severe pneumonia. The doctors said she'd been running on empty for months, sacrificing her own health to try to provide for her children. She might recover with proper treatment, but it would take time, months possibly. Meanwhile, Madison and the twins were in a pediatric ward, monitored but stable. Madison hadn't left her sister's side, sitting between their cribs like a tiny sentinel, refusing to sleep despite her exhaustion. Every time a nurse approached, she'd ask the same desperate question, "When can we go home to Mama?" No one had an answer she wanted to hear. "Mr. Sterling," said the older CPS representative, a stern-faced woman named Dorothy Walsh, "I understand this situation is complicated, but we need to make decisions about these children's immediate welfare. Their mother is incapacitated. They have no other family. Sarah Mitchell was orphaned at 16 and has no living relatives. The children's residence is a trailer that's been condemned by the health department. They cannot return there." Harrison's jaw tightened. "What are you suggesting?" "Foster care," Dorothy said bluntly. "We have a family that can take the twins immediately. For Madison, given her age and the responsibilities she's been carrying, we'd prefer a placement with experience in trauma cases. We can likely keep the children in the Portland area." "No." The word came out harder than Harrison intended. Every person in the room turned to look at him. "You're not separating them." Dorothy's expression didn't change. "Mr. Sterling, with all due respect, finding a foster placement for 3 children together, especially including 2-year-old twins, is extremely difficult. We have to prioritize their immediate safety." "Their immediate safety is not being ripped away from each other," Harrison shot back. He stood up, unable to sit still any longer, and began pacing. "Madison has spent her entire life protecting those girls. Separating them would destroy her. Can't you see that?" "We see it," Patricia Green, the social worker, said gently. She was younger than Dorothy, with kind eyes that had probably seen too much suffering. "But Mr. Sterling, the reality is that the foster system is overwhelmed. We do our best, but sometimes we can't keep siblings together, especially when one is as young as 6 and responsible for twins." Michael Brennan, Harrison's attorney, cleared his throat. He was a sharp man in his 50s who'd handled everything from corporate mergers to Harrison's divorce. "There is another option," he said carefully. "Mr. Sterling could apply for emergency custody." The room went silent. "Based on what grounds?" Dorothy asked skeptically. "He's not a relative. He has no prior relationship with these children." "Actually," Michael said, sliding a folder across the table, "we might. I took the liberty of expediting a paternity test with the hospital's lab. The results just came in." He opened the folder, revealing printed documents. "Harrison Sterling is Madison Mitchell's biological father. That gives him standing to petition for custody." Harrison's heart hammered in his chest. He'd known somehow from the moment Sarah had spoken those words in the hallway, but seeing it in black and white, confirmed by science, made it real in a way that terrified and exhilarated him simultaneously. Dorothy picked up the document, her eyes scanning it quickly. Her expression shifted from skepticism to surprise. "This is legitimate?" "Completely," Dr. Torres confirmed. "I oversaw the testing myself. There's a 99.9% probability that Mr. Sterling is Madison's father. That doesn't give him automatic rights to the twins," Dorothy pointed out. But her tone had softened slightly. "They're not his biological children." "No, but they're Madison's sisters," Harrison said, moving back to the table. "And I won't let them be separated. I want custody of all 3 girls. Temporary custody until Sarah recovers, at which point we can revisit the arrangement." Patricia leaned forward, her expression thoughtful. "Mr. Sterling, can I ask you something? This morning you didn't even know these children existed. Now you're volunteering to take in 3 girls, including 2 toddlers, one of whom has significant emotional trauma. Why?" It was a fair question. Harrison thought about his answer carefully. When I got that phone call, something in me woke up that I thought had died with my daughter. Madison's voice, her courage, her determination to save her sisters. It reminded me that there's more to life than board meetings and profit margins. I can't bring Charlotte back, but I can help these girls. I can give them safety, stability, everything they've been missing. And Madison. He paused, emotion tightening his throat. Madison is my daughter. I didn't know it then, but some part of me must have sensed it. I'm not walking away from her. Not now. Not ever. Dorothy and Patricia exchanged a long look, having one of those silent conversations that colleagues who worked together for years could have. Finally, Dorothy sighed. This is highly irregular. You'd need to pass a background check, home study, provide references. I can have all of that by tomorrow morning, Michael interjected smoothly. Mr. Sterling has no criminal record. His finances are beyond stable. And I can provide character references from senators, judges, and business leaders across the country. That's not what children need, Patricia said pointedly. They need someone who can be present, who can handle the emotional complexity of their situation. Mr. Sterling, do you work 80-hour weeks? Harrison met her gaze steadily. I did, but my priorities have changed as of today. I'll cut my hours, hire additional help if needed, do whatever it takes. These girls won't be raised by nannies or staff. They'll be raised by me. Another long silence. Then Dorothy gathered her papers. I'll need to consult with my supervisor. But Mr. Sterling, if, and this is a big if, we approve emergency custody, understand that we'll be monitoring this placement closely. Any sign that the children's welfare is compromised, and we'll remove them immediately. Understood, Harrison said. There's also the matter of Sarah Mitchell's parental rights, Dorothy continued. She'd need to consent to this arrangement. She's unconscious, Dr. Torres noted. Then we'll need to wait until she can be consulted, Dorothy said firmly. In the meantime, the children will remain here under hospital supervision. As the meeting broke up, Harrison felt both frustrated and hopeful. He was closer to keeping the girls together, but Sarah's consent was crucial. What if she woke up and refused? What if she saw him as just another wealthy man trying to take her children? He needed to talk to her, to explain, to promise that he wasn't trying to replace her, just help her. Dr. Torres approached him as the others filed out. You can see her, she said quietly. She's awake, barely, but awake. She's been asking for you. Harrison's pulse quickened. Does she know about the paternity results? Yes, I thought she had the right to know. Doctor. Torres's expression was unreadable. Mr. Sterling, that woman has been through hell. Whatever you say to her, remember that she's been doing the best she could with nothing. Don't judge her. I'm not here to judge anyone, Harrison said softly. I'm here to help. He followed Dr. Torres to the ICU, his heart pounding harder with each step. Through the glass window, he could see Sarah propped up in bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, IV lines in her arms. She looked even frailer than before, like a strong wind could blow her away. But her eyes, those blue eyes so like Madison's, were alert and fixed on him as he entered. Hi, Harrison said awkwardly, pulling up a chair beside her bed. What did you say to a woman you'd spent one drunken night with 7 years ago, who'd borne your child in secret? You know, Sarah said, her voice hoarse but steady. About Madison. That she's yours. Yes. Harrison couldn't lie. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you try harder to reach me? Tears slipped down Sarah's cheeks. I did try. But you're Harrison Sterling, billionaire CEO. You have layers of assistance and security. I was a 21-year-old single mother with no money and no proof. Who would have believed me? I thought. I thought maybe it was better if you didn't know. That Madison would be better off without a father who might reject her or think I was just after money. Harrison flinched because he could see the logic in her reasoning. How many women had tried to claim connections to him over the years? How many false paternity suits had his lawyers deflected? Sarah would have been dismissed as another opportunist, her genuine claim lost in the noise. I'm sorry, he said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. I'm sorry you had to go through this alone. I'm sorry Madison grew up without me. But I'm here now, Sarah, and I want to help. Sarah's breath hitched. They told me about the custody petition, that you want to take all 3 girls while I recover. Yes, but only if you agree. I'm not trying to steal your children. I just want to keep them safe and together until you're well enough to care for them again. And then what? Sarah asked, her voice breaking. You give them back and disappear? Madison will have gotten attached to you, to the life you can give her, and then she'll have to come back to our broken-down existence? How is that fair to her? The question hit Harrison like a punch. He hadn't thought that far ahead, hadn't considered the long-term implications. I don't know, he admitted. But I know that right now your daughters need stability. They need food and safety and medical care. Let me give them that. We can figure out the rest later. Sarah closed her eyes, fresh tears streaming down her face. I love my babies more than anything in this world. Everything I've done, every sacrifice has been for them. But I'm so tired, Harrison. So tired of failing them. Maybe they do need someone who can give them more than I can. You haven't failed them, Harrison said fiercely, leaning forward. Madison is the bravest, most selfless child I've ever met. She learned that from you. You did that. Whatever else you think you failed at, you succeeded in raising an incredible daughter. Sarah's eyes opened, searching his face. You really mean that? Every word. Harrison took a breath. Sarah, let me help you. Not just the girls, but you too. The best doctors, the best treatment for your tuberculosis, time to rest and heal without worrying about money or food or shelter. You can't take care of them if you don't take care of yourself first. And what do you want in return? Sarah asked, a hint of the wariness that had probably kept her alive in the streets creeping into her voice. To be Madison's father, Harrison said simply. Not to replace you, but to be part of her life. And to help Zoe and Chloe too, because they're Madison's family, which makes them my family. That's all. No strings, no tricks. Sarah studied him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay, you can take them. But Harrison, if you hurt my babies, if you make promises you don't keep, I will find a way to make you pay. I don't care how rich or powerful you are. Despite everything, Harrison smiled. There was the strength that had kept 3 children alive against impossible odds. I believe you, and I promise, Sarah, I'll keep them safe. Sarah reached out a trembling hand and Harrison took it. In that moment, an unlikely alliance was formed. 2 broken people united by love for the same remarkable little girl. 3 weeks later, Harrison stood in what used to be his home gym, now transformed into a bedroom for Madison. His penthouse had undergone rapid renovations, the second guest room converted into a nursery for the twins, the stark modern decor softened with colors and warmth. His interior designer had worked miracles, creating spaces that felt like a real home rather than a showpiece. But standing here now, watching Madison slowly explore her new room with wide, disbelieving eyes, Harrison wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. Not in taking the girls. No, that felt right, in a way few things in his life ever had. But in thinking he had any idea how to be a father again. This is all for me? Madison asked for the 3rd time, running her hand over the pale yellow comforter on the bed. The room was decorated in soft yellows and whites, with built-in bookshelves already filled with age-appropriate books, a small desk for homework, and a window seat overlooking the city. It was beautiful, comfortable, and probably overwhelming for a child who'd spent her life in a cramped trailer. All for you, Harrison confirmed. He'd been watching her carefully since she'd arrived that morning, noting how she moved through the space like she was afraid to touch anything, like she expected it all to disappear. Madison, you can change anything you don't like. We can paint the walls, get different furniture, whatever you want. Madison turned to him, her blue eyes, so much like his own, filled with confusion. Why are you being so nice to us? The question stabbed at Harrison's heart. 3 weeks of daily hospital visits, of slowly building trust, and she still couldn't believe someone would be kind without ulterior motive. Because you're my daughter, he said gently, crouching down to her level. And because you deserve nice things. But you didn't know I was your daughter when you came to find us in the forest, Madison pointed out with the logic of someone who'd learned to question everything. You were nice to us even then. Smart kid. You're right, Harrison admitted. I helped you because it was the right thing to do. But now I know you're mine, and that makes everything different. You're not just a child I helped, you're my child. Do you understand the difference? Madison bit her lip, thinking. My friend Jasmine at school has a daddy. He picks her up every day and brings her snacks and helps with her homework. Is that what you're going to do? Yes, Harrison said firmly. And more. I'm going to make sure you're safe and fed and happy. I'm going to help you with homework and come to school events and tuck you in at night. I'm going to be your dad, if you'll let me. Tears welled up in Madison's eyes. But what about Mama? Is she going to get better? This was the conversation Harrison had been dreading. Sarah's condition had stabilized, but recovery would be long. She'd been transferred to a specialized tuberculosis treatment facility where she'd remain for at least 3 months, possibly 6. She was heartbroken at being separated from her daughters, but had accepted it with the quiet resignation of someone who'd learned that life rarely gave her what she wanted. Your mom is getting better every day, Harrison said truthfully. But it's going to take time. The medicine she needs is strong and she has to rest a lot. You can video call her every day, and once the doctors say it's safe, we can visit her in person. But for now, you and your sisters are going to stay here with me. And then we go back to her? Madison asked hopefully. Harrison hesitated. This was the complicated part. Sarah had agreed to the custody arrangement, but both of them knew that the girls' lives had changed permanently. Even if Sarah fully recovered, she had no home, no job, no resources. CPS wouldn't release the girls back to her unless she could prove stability. And Harrison couldn't imagine giving Madison up now. She was his daughter, and more than that, she'd become essential to him in a way he hadn't anticipated. We'll figure that out together, he said finally. Your mom loves you so much, Madison. Nothing is going to change that. But things are going to be different now. Better, I hope. Before Madison could respond, a wail erupted from down the hall. Chloe, awake from her nap and unhappy about it. Madison's entire demeanor shifted immediately, shoulders straightening, eyes focusing, moving toward the door with purpose. I need to check on her, Madison said, already in motion. Wait. Harrison caught her gently by the shoulder. Letitia is with them. That's her job, to help take care of the twins while you're here. Letitia Morales was the nanny Harrison had hired, a warm Latina woman in her 50s with decades of child care experience and references that could fill a book. She'd started 3 days ago, and while she was wonderful with the twins, Madison treated her with deep suspicion. But I always take care of them when they cry, Madison protested. I know you do, and you've done an amazing job. But Madison, you're 6 years old. You shouldn't have to be responsible for your sisters all the time. You should get to be a kid. Harrison could see the conflict on her face, the ingrained responsibility warring with the desperate desire to just be a child. How about we go check on them together? You can show me what Chloe likes when she's upset. That was the magic phrase. Madison relaxed slightly, accepting the compromise. They walked together to the nursery, where Letitia was already scooping up Chloe, bouncing her gently while making soothing sounds. Zoe remained asleep in her crib, undisturbed by her sister's cries. She doesn't like that, Madison said immediately. Chloe wants to be held facing out, not against your shoulder. And she likes it if you hum, not talk. Letitia, to her credit, didn't take offense. She adjusted her hold, turning Chloe outward, and began humming softly. The crying subsided almost immediately. You're right, Letitia said with a warm smile. Thank you for teaching me, Madison. You know your sisters better than anyone. The validation seemed to ease something in Madison. She moved closer, gently touching Chloe's foot. It's okay, Chloe Bug. This is our new home. It's really big and really nice, and there's lots of food, and nobody's going to hurt us here. Harrison felt his throat tighten. Nobody's going to hurt us here. What had these girls experienced that Madison felt the need to promise that? The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Dinner, prepared by Harrison's private chef, Maria, who'd been given strict instructions to make kid-friendly food, was an adventure. Madison approached the table like she was entering a battlefield, her eyes taking in the array of dishes with suspicion. "What is all this?" she asked. "Dinner," Harrison said, pulling out a chair for her. "We have grilled chicken, macaroni and cheese, steamed broccoli with cheese sauce, fruit salad, and dinner rolls. Maria wanted to make something you'd like." Madison stared at the food. "This is all for us?" "Yes." Harrison served her plate, noting how she watched every movement, how she tensed when he put food on her plate like she expected it to be taken away. "You can have as much as you want, and if you don't like something, we won't make you eat it." The meal was quiet, with Madison eating slowly, methodically, like someone who'd learned to savor every bite because she never knew when the next would come. She kept glancing at Harrison, as if waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to reveal this was all a trick. It broke Harrison's heart. After dinner, bath time for the twins was chaotic. Madison insisted on supervising, showing Letitia exactly how each girl liked to be bathed, which toys they preferred, what temperature the water should be. Harrison watched this 6-year-old directing a professional nanny and marveled at her competence born from necessity. Finally, when the twins were clean and drowsy in their cribs, Harrison tucked Madison into her new bed. She looked impossibly small against the pillows, her blonde curls spread around her head like a halo. "Mr. Harrison?" she said quietly as he pulled the blanket up to her chin. "You can call me Dad if you want," Harrison offered gently. "Or Harrison, or Mr. Sterling, or whatever feels right to you." Madison considered this. "Can I think about it?" "Of course." Harrison sat on the edge of the bed. "What did you want to ask?" "Is this real?" Madison's voice was so small, so vulnerable. "Or am I going to wake up tomorrow back in the trailer and this will all have been a dream?" Harrison's heart shattered. He reached out, gently brushing hair from her forehead. "This is real, sweetheart. I promise you this is real. When you wake up tomorrow, you'll still be here, in this room, safe and warm and fed, and I'll be here too." "The promise, man," Madison whispered, her eyes already drifting closed. "You kept your promise in the forest. Do you promise this too?" "I promise," Harrison said, his voice thick with emotion. "Sweet dreams, Madison." He stayed until her breathing evened out into sleep, then quietly left the room. In the hallway, he leaned against the wall, overwhelmed. 3 weeks ago, his life had been ordered, controlled, predictable. Now he had 3 little girls depending on him, a complicated situation with their mother, and no idea if he was doing anything right. His phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "How is she? How are they?" Harrison sent back photos he'd taken throughout the day. Madison exploring her room, the twins playing with new toys, all 3 girls at dinner. Then he typed, "They're adjusting. Madison's scared it's not real. I'm scared I'm going to fail them." Sarah's response came quickly. "You won't. I see how you look at her, like she's precious. Like she matters." That's all she's ever needed. Harrison stared at the text for a long moment, then walked to his study. He had emails from the office, calls to return, deals waiting for his attention. He ignored all of it and instead pulled up his laptop, searching for information on childhood trauma, on helping children adjust to new environments, on being a father to a child who'd never had one. He had a lot to learn, but for Madison, for Zoe, for Chloe, he'd learn it, whatever it took. Nearly 2 years transformed everything. Harrison stood in the kitchen of his penthouse on a Saturday morning, watching Madison help Letitia make pancakes while the twins banged on pots with wooden spoons, creating a cacophony that would have horrified him years ago. Now it was the sound of home. "Daddy, Chloe's eating the batter again," Madison called out, using the title she'd started using over a year ago and now said with complete natural confidence. "Chloe, that's not for eating yet," Harrison said, swooping in to redirect the toddler toward a bowl of cut-up strawberries instead. At 4 years old now, the twins had blossomed into vibrant little people with distinct personalities. Zoe was cautious and observant, while Chloe was bold and mischievous. Madison was the real miracle. The frightened, overburdened child from the hospital had slowly unfurled like a flower, finally given sunlight. She'd gained weight, her cheeks now round and healthy. She smiled easily, laughed often, and had stopped looking over her shoulder, waiting for disaster. She'd completed second grade and was now thriving in third grade at an excellent private school, where her teachers reported she was exceptionally bright and surprisingly advanced in reading despite her disrupted early education. But more than academic progress, Madison had learned to be a kid. She played with dolls without worrying about her sister's safety. She had sleepovers with new friends without panic attacks. She asked for things she wanted without fear of being punished for wanting too much. Slowly, painfully, beautifully, she was healing. Harrison had changed too. He'd stepped back from day-to-day operations at Sterling Enterprises, promoting his COO and working primarily from home. Board members had grumbled initially, but profits remained strong, and Harrison found he didn't care about their complaints. He'd spent years building an empire and nearly lost himself in the process. These girls, his girls, had given him back something money never could. His phone rang. Sarah. Harrison's relationship with her had evolved into something neither of them had expected, a genuine friendship built on shared love for the children and mutual respect. She called every day to video chat with the girls, and Harrison always made sure they had private time to talk. "Good morning," Harrison answered, moving to the living room for quieter conversation. "Good morning?" Sarah's voice was stronger now, clearer. The tuberculosis treatment had been brutal, but she'd endured it with the same quiet strength she'd shown in everything else. She'd been released from the treatment facility 2 months ago and was now in a transitional living program that Harrison had discreetly funded, working on rebuilding her life. "How are my babies today?" "Loud and messy," Harrison said with affection. "Madison's making pancakes and the twins are mostly just making noise. Want to say hi?" "Actually, I wanted to talk to you first." Sarah's tone shifted, becoming nervous. "I got a job, a real job, at a nonprofit that helps families experiencing homelessness. They knew about my situation and hired me anyway. It's full-time with benefits, and Harrison, I can finally start supporting myself again." "Sarah, that's wonderful." Harrison meant it sincerely. He'd never wanted Sarah to be dependent on him, had always hoped she'd regain her independence. "There's more." Sarah took a breath. "The program helped me find an apartment. It's small, just 2 bedrooms, but it's clean and safe, and it's mine. Well, mine and the girls, if." She trailed off. Harrison's chest tightened. He'd known this conversation was coming eventually. "If what?" "If we can figure out a custody arrangement," Sarah said quietly. "Harrison, I'm so grateful for everything you've done. You saved my daughters' lives, gave them stability when I couldn't. But they're my children. I miss them every single day. And now that I'm healthy and have a job and a home, I want them back." The words hit Harrison like a physical blow, even though they shouldn't have surprised him. This had always been the plan, temporary custody until Sarah recovered. But somewhere along the way, temporary had started to feel permanent. These girls weren't just his responsibility anymore. They were his family. Madison was his daughter. The twins called him Daddy H and ran to him when they were scared. How could he just give that up? "I understand," Harrison managed, his voice strained. "Do you?" Sarah's tone sharpened slightly. "Because I've been preparing myself for months for you to fight me on this. You have money, power, the best lawyers in the country. You could make my life hell if you wanted to keep them." "I would never do that to you," Harrison said, offended by the implication but understanding where it came from. "Sarah, I'm not trying to steal your children, but you have to understand, Madison is my daughter too. Biologically, yes, but more than that now. I love her. I love all 3 of them. The thought of not seeing them every day, of not being part of their lives, it's unbearable." Silence on the line. Then softly, "I know. I've seen the photos you send, the videos of Madison at her school play, the twins learning to talk. I see how happy they are, how much they love you, and I'm terrified, Harrison. Terrified that they don't need me anymore, that I've been replaced." "You could never be replaced," Harrison said firmly. "Madison talks about you constantly. She counts down the days until your next visit. The twins don't fully understand yet, but Madison knows you're her mother, and that means everything to her." "Then what do we do?" Sarah asked, and Harrison could hear tears in her voice. Because I can't lose my babies, but I also can't ask them to leave the life you've given them. How do we make this work? Harrison thought about his answer carefully. An idea had been forming in his mind for weeks, one he'd been too afraid to voice. But maybe now was the time. What if we do this together? He suggested. Not split custody, battling over holidays and summer vacations. Really together. Co-parenting in the truest sense. What does that mean? It means we put the girls first, above our own egos or fears. Madison needs both of us, her father and her mother, and her. The twins have bonded with me, but you're their mother, and they need you too. Harrison paced as he talked, the words flowing faster. What if your apartment wasn't separate from our lives? What if we made this work as an extended family? You'd have your independence, your own space, but you'd be part of the girls' daily lives. We'd share decisions, share time, share responsibility. That's unusual, Sarah said carefully. So is our situation, Harrison pointed out. Sarah, I'm not asking you to give up your daughters. I'm asking if we can both be their parents, working together instead of fighting over them. They've been through enough upheaval. Let's give them stability with both of us in their lives. Another long pause. I need to think about this, Sarah finally said. And we'd need to figure out details, boundaries, how it would actually work day to day. Of course. Take your time. Harrison meant it even though anxiety gnawed at him. Just promise me we'll keep talking, keep working toward what's best for them. I promise, Sarah said. Then, more gently, thank you, Harrison. For everything, I mean that. After they hung up, Harrison returned to the kitchen to find Madison watching him with worried eyes. She'd gotten better at reading his moods, could sense when something was wrong. Was that Mama? She asked. Yes. She wants to talk to you. And she has good news. She got a job and an apartment. Madison's face lit up. Really? That's amazing. Then, uncertainly, does that mean we're going back to live with her? Here it was, the question Harrison had been dreading. He knelt down in front of Madison, taking her small hands in his. Would you want that? Madison's expression became complicated, emotions warring across her young face. I miss Mama so much, she said quietly. But I love living here with you. I love my room and my school and Letitia and Maria. And I love that there's always enough food and I don't have to worry about taking care of Zoe and Chloe all by myself anymore. Tears welled up. Does that make me a bad daughter? That I don't want everything to go back to how it was before? Oh, sweetheart, no. Harrison pulled her into a hug, his heart breaking for her. That doesn't make you bad at all, it makes you human. You're allowed to love the life we've built here and still miss your mom. Those two things can both be true. But if Mama wants us back, we have to go, right? Madison sniffled against his shoulder. Because she's our mom and she loves us and it wouldn't be fair to say no. Harrison pulled back, looking Madison in the eyes. What if I told you that you might not have to choose? That maybe, just maybe, we could figure out a way for you to have both of us. Hope bloomed on Madison's face. Really? How? I'm not sure yet, Harrison admitted. But your mom and I are going to work on it, because we both love you. And we both want what's best for you. So we're going to try something that maybe no one's tried before, being a family in a new way. Madison thought about this, her brilliant mind processing. Like when my friend Aisha has 2 houses because her parents are divorced, but they're nice to each other and have dinner together sometimes. Sort of like that, but we'd figure out what works for us specifically. Harrison smoothed her hair back. The important thing is that you'll have your mom and me, both of us, not having to choose one over the other. And Zoe and Chloe too? And Zoe and Chloe too, Harrison confirmed. Madison's smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. She threw her arms around Harrison's neck, squeezing tight. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart, Harrison whispered, holding her close. So much. The weeks that followed were filled with difficult conversations and careful negotiations. Sarah visited the penthouse, seeing firsthand how the girls had flourished. Harrison visited her new apartment, understanding her need for independence and space to be their mother. They met with family therapists, with lawyers, with social workers, all working toward a solution that prioritized the children's welfare. Dorothy Walsh from CPS, who'd been monitoring the case closely, finally called Harrison into her office nearly 18 months after the rescue. Harrison sat across from her, nervous despite his confidence in business negotiations. This was different. This was about his family. "Mr. Sterling?" Dorothy began, her stern expression softening slightly. "In my 25 years with CPS, I've never seen a case quite like this. A biological father and a mother who barely knew each other, working together to co-parent children who've experienced significant trauma. By all standard metrics, this should be a disaster." Harrison's stomach dropped. But it's working," Dorothy admitted. "Madison's therapist reports she's thriving. The twins are hitting all their developmental milestones. Sarah is stable and employed. And most importantly, the children are happy. They feel secure with both of you." She slid papers across her desk. "We're recommending a formal joint custody arrangement. Sarah will have primary legal custody, but physical custody will be shared. The girls will stay with you during the school week and with Sarah on weekends and extended periods during summer and holidays. Both of you will be involved in major decisions about their education, health care, and welfare." Relief flooded through Harrison so intensely he almost couldn't speak. "Thank you," he managed. "Don't thank me yet," Dorothy warned. "This arrangement is contingent on continued cooperation between you and Ms. Mitchell. The moment that cooperation breaks down, the moment the children's well-being is compromised, we'll revisit this. Understood?" "Understood," Harrison said firmly. That evening, Harrison and Sarah sat the girls down together, a united front. Madison sat between them on the couch, the twins playing with blocks nearby. "We have something important to tell you," Sarah began, taking Madison's hand. "Good important or bad important?" Madison asked nervously. "Very good important," Harrison assured her, taking her other hand. "Your mom and I have worked out a plan. You and your sisters are going to keep living here with me during the school week, but you'll spend weekends and holidays with your mom at her apartment. And anytime you want to see her during the week, we'll make it happen. Same with me on weekends." Madison looked between them, processing. "So I get both of you? Really both of you?" "Really both of us," Sarah confirmed, tears in her eyes. "I know it's different from most families, but we're going to make it work. Because you girls are the most important thing to both of us." Madison launched herself at them, trying to hug both adults at once. "This is the best news ever. Wait until I tell Jasmine at school. She thinks having divorced parents with 2 houses is cool. But I get 2 houses with parents who actually like each other." Harrison and Sarah laughed through their tears, and for the first time since that desperate phone call in the rain, Harrison felt like everything might actually be okay. The months that followed had challenges, adjusting to the custody schedule, navigating the complicated emotions that came with their unusual arrangement, figuring out boundaries and rules that worked across 2 households. But they faced each challenge together, always putting the girls first. Sarah found her confidence again, building a career helping other families in crisis. Harrison discovered that success in business paled compared to the joy of watching his daughters grow. And Madison, remarkable, resilient Madison, blossomed into the child she'd always deserved to be. Smart, happy, and finally free to just be 8 years old. On Madison's 8th birthday, 2 years after that life-changing phone call, Harrison threw a party at the penthouse. The living room was filled with school friends, laughter, and chaos. Sarah was there too, helping serve cake alongside Harrison, both of them wearing ridiculous party hats that Madison had insisted on. As Harrison watched Madison blow out her candles, surrounded by her sisters and friends, he thought back to that stormy day when a wrong number had changed his life. He'd answered thinking it was a mistake. Instead, it had been fate giving him a second chance, a chance to be a father again, to build a family, to matter in ways that had nothing to do with money or power. "What did you wish for?" Sarah asked Madison when the candles were out. Madison looked at Harrison, then at Sarah, then at her baby sisters trying to steal frosting from the cake. Her smile was pure joy. "Nothing," she said simply. "I already have everything I wanted." Harrison met Sarah's eyes across the table, and in that moment, they shared an understanding. They'd both been broken by loss, by poverty, by impossible circumstances. But somehow together they'd built something beautiful from the wreckage. Not a traditional family, but a real one. One built on love, sacrifice, and the determination to give 3 little girls the life they deserved. As the party continued around them, Harrison felt a peace he hadn't known since before Charlotte died. He couldn't bring his first daughter back, couldn't undo those years of grief. But he'd been given a gift, 3 daughters who needed him as much as he needed them. And this time he wouldn't waste a single moment of it.